I think we are live. So welcome to our September Knoxville FEI chapter meeting. We promised that we wouldn't do some of the other platforms that we had. So thanks to Holly Holloway at the Holloway Event Company for helping host tonight's event. You all may recall about a month ago, we did a survey. We got a lot of good feedback from the members, and more than half of the people said you wanted to meet in person. At the end of the day, we do too. We want to meet. We're all about networking and sharing ideas. There have been a few things recently that have been working against us in getting together, one of which was the local caseloads on the COVID front. We continue to monitor those, and we're cautiously optimistic we can meet in person in October. Stephen will give an update on that shortly. I do want to say that I hope each of you and your family members are safe. This has been a time like no other. I think both companies and individuals and students and partners and family members have had to be very flexible in these trying times. I know Lisa may touch on some of the challenges they've had to face at Zoo Knoxville. But at the end of the day, we're here. We're going to get together as soon as we can. First and foremost, we're going to be safe. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for all of your Q&A questions that you'll have with Lisa throughout the event. And I like the forum. So if need be, we can certainly use this again going forward. I do, before I turn it over to Alan to introduce or to give a rundown of our partners, both returning and new, I did want to briefly mention our 5 interns. You may recall last year we merged the intern and scholarship program, whereas each of the interns will receive $500 check towards their scholarship from FEI Knoxville. This year, and I hope you can meet these folks in person in October, we have returning interns, Michaela Fonts and Gabe Schilling, and then 3 new interns who you've probably been networking with tonight, Brent Phillips, Amber Hatherley, and Walker Hale. So either virtually tonight or in person in October, when you get a chance, definitely meet those folks. And I do want to give a special thanks to Lisa New. She's got a lot going on, but there's a lot of great things going on at the zoo, and she looks forward to sharing those tonight. So I'm going to step off the stage, sort of, and turn it over to Alan. Hopefully. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Can you guys hear me? Appreciate the introduction, and it's great to see everybody again, although it's virtually. So just wanted to give a brief introduction to some of the partners. As you know, that our partners make this possible, and we certainly appreciate not only their partnership, but also their participation in our. We've had a very busy summer. We've had several partners, continue to renew their partnership, and we've also brought in some additional partners. So I wanted to first just touch base on those partners who we've gladly renewed their partnership for this year. In our banking side, we still have Regions, SunTrust, who is now Truist, and Fifth Third Bank. In the CPA firms representing, we have Culture and Justice, KPMG, and new this year is Pew CPAs. In the insurance side, we have PMG Benefits, Scott Insurance, and Willis Tower Watson. In the investment side, we have Sageview Advisory Group and the Trust Company. And new this year, you'll see, you might have met Nathan sitting at one of the tables, is Rather and Kittrell. In the marketing group, we have Baker Labs. They have furnished and published the pamphlet that you'll see with a brochure of not only the members, but also the partners with some of the advertisement there. For recruiting, we have Robert Half, now CFO, and Resource Accounting has joined, but it is now RIMEX. So they've changed names and partnered with a different name. So we want to say thank you to all of our partners. We certainly couldn't do it without you. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Stephen Arnold.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone virtually. Hopefully we can, we're planning on meeting this next month in person, October 20th. This event will not be at Bridgewater. It'll be at Lakeshore. We've got the Marble Hall Pavilion that is reserved there. It's nice and open. I attended an event not too long ago there, and it's a very safe place to meet. I felt like it's a great venue during these times to be able to meet. So we've got scheduled Tim Burchett, our congressman, who's confirmed to be there. So it should be a really exciting event, and looking forward to seeing everyone in person next month on October 20th. There's also plenty of parking there as well, so we're hoping to get a nice group of people, large group of people out to the event. So you'll see more coming along your way by email on that event to sign up. Okay, and at this time, I'd like to introduce our intern from UT, Gabe Schillings, who will introduce our speaker this evening.
Thanks, Stephen. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gabe Schillings. I'm a senior intern with FEI. Got one more semester at UT, so I'm really happy to be here. I hope everyone enjoys this different approach to our meetings, and hopefully we get to go back, as they were saying, in October and see everyone in person. I would like to introduce Lisa New. Lisa was appointed president and CEO of Zoo Knoxville in May 2013. Ms. New is the 5th executive director in the zoo's 70-year history and the first woman to hold this position. Prior to becoming president and CEO, Ms. New was the zoo's senior director of animal care and conservation. A graduate of the University of Tennessee, go Vols, with a Master of Science in Ethology, or better known as animal behavior, Ms. New first joined Zoo Knoxville's conservation science staff and later was promoted to director of animal collections. With a background in Great Ape behavior, Ms. New served as vice chair of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, Chimpanzee Species Survival Plan for over a decade, and vice chair of the AZA Gorilla Species Survival Plan for 8 years. She remains a management group member of the AZA Ape Taxon Advisory Group since 2008. She's been an AZA accreditation inspector since 2011 and currently serves on the AZA Board of Directors. In late 2020, strategic plan for the zoo that united the community. Since then, a comprehensive campus master plan, marketing and rebranding plan, a $39 million capital campaign, and the largest construction projects in the zoo's history have been implemented, featuring new engaging habitats for animals as well as for guests. Since 2015, the zoo has annually broken attendance records with growth of 30%, and before the pandemic welcomed over 500,000 guests per year. Winning multiple awards have opened since 2017, including Gateways to Signage, Boyd Family Asian Track, with new habitats for tigers, gibbons, langurs, and a new cafe. The new Clayton Family Amphibian, the Reptile Conservation Campus, ARC, is scheduled for opening in 2021 and will feature the animals and conservation work Zoo Knoxville is most well known for. Building a destination experience that serves as a catalyst for the revitalization of East as an anchor attraction for the community is a key initiative for Ms. New, and her passion for it is inspiring people to care about wild places and wildlife. So please help me in introducing Lisa New.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Gabe. I have really got to shorten that bio. So note to self, Gabe gave all my secrets away. So we can go straight to questions. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, everyone. It's good to be in this virtual room with you. Sorry we can't be together at the zoo. We really appreciate You guys always hosting the Fiesta party here, and we hope you can do that in the spring. But for now, my intention is to do a quick overview of the zoo. I do want to spend some time talking about the pandemic and the effects that that's had on the zoo, and of course some animal updates, and as well as the future and what's coming up. A lot's been happening here, as you can imagine, as I'm sure is the case with most of your businesses. And I'll catch you up to speed on that. But tonight I'm going to give a little overview of the zoo, talk about the impact of COVID, and the future and funding. But before we get there, there is a individual I would like for you to meet. So we have a little surprise for you tonight, and I'm going to ask my friends who are down in the animal hospital to come on the stage.
Hello. Hi, so this is Joe. He is a red panda cub that was born here this summer. He actually turns 3 months old tomorrow. He is basically at the toddler stage. As you can tell, the idea of being still is one that he does not want to participate in right now. But he was born to our pair, Gansu and Deegan, and he was an only child. And Mom did a really good job trying to raise him, but she couldn't produce enough milk, so we had to step in and help out by hand raising. So he will actually be going to join another cub in the Erie Zoo on Thursday. So this is kind of his last hurrah here. And he will go there for peer rearing, so he learns all the proper red panda behavior so he can grow up and be a fully functioning member of Red Panda Society. But believe it or not, he's been super calm and quiet this whole time. And as soon as the camera came on, he decided that he was going to get a little active.
Yeah, I heard he was sleepy. So much for that. But just to brag a little bit on Sarah in our program, Joe is number what, Sarah? Red Panda's born here?
And 11?
111.
Yeah, it all goes out of my head. It's been so long. It's been 26 years now of breeding these guys. But yeah, we are number one right now in the world. So Zoo Knoxville has done an excellent job with them.
So yeah, we are the best producer of red pandas in the world. And Sarah chairs the Red Panda Species Survival Plan, the global population, in fact. So if anybody needs anything panda, she is the one. So I do know it's probably getting about bedtime. This little guy's had a big day. He met his namesake, his family's namesake today. He was named after Joe Clayton, Jim Clayton's brother, and they came to meet him today before he heads out to Erie. So I'll let him say goodbye and Sarah before he climbs up Sarah's face, and you'll see why we say that pandas cubs are like Velcro, which is not a pretty sight. Thank you, Sarah, and Tina running the cam. So just a little treat for you guys since you can't be here. I did see that she was part of your Fiesta last year. So we're really proud of Sarah and all that she's done here. She's been at the zoo, as she said, 26 years. And this year is my 30th year. So once the zoo gets to you, it gets in your blood. So hopefully, and Greg knows that because he filled in for us for a while as a CFO, and now he's on our finance committee. So it's one of those things that just happen a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get started with some background for you. So the next slide, these may be things you know, but usually when I give these presentations, there are things that most people, maybe a tidbit or two you weren't aware of. And so from a business standpoint, a strong metropolitan area has to have great destinations and attractions that serve as destinations. So for our area, Zoo Knoxville is one of the most notable and largest attended. We pre-COVID we're having 500,000 guests annually. We're a top attraction in the state, in number 15, in fact. And over half of our guests are tourists, which is unique for any zoo. Most zoos are community treasures, but our zoo attracts a pretty heavy tourist base. And so typically over half of those guests are tourists traveling for more than 50 miles away. They contribute significantly to the local economy. And according to the Tennessee Department of Tourism Development, they brought last year $28.5 million to the economy. For reference, that supports 455 local jobs. Pre-COVID, 210 of those were Knoxville Zoo full-time equivalents, and 245 in the tourist economy. And of course, this figure doesn't include hundreds of additional local jobs that are supported by our Capitol building projects, which I'll talk about in a minute. You can hit the next slide. So this has been a win-win for our community. And I know I'm biased, but we have a great zoo for our community. Some people say we have a great zoo for a city our size, and that actually is a little irritating to me. I know I've been in the zoo world for 30 years, and we have a great zoo for any city, any size. And if you are a zoo goer, then you would agree with me on that. You're seeing now the slide of the last openings that we had, Boyd Family Asian Trek. And we were voted USA Today Readers Poll top 10 best exhibits in the country for Gibbon Trails and Langer Landing. And the entire component of Boyd Family Asian Trek, which includes the tiger forest, white-naped cranes, a 3-story tree house, the new restaurant, Gibbon Trails and Langer Landing, got number 4 of the best exhibits in the country this past year. And last year, we also got a highest honor with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums in best and most impactful exhibits. So if you haven't been to the zoo in the past 2 years, you've not been to the zoo. And I'm going to call my introducer out, Gabe, to say he has not been to the zoo in a long time. So it is not your mama's zoo, Gabe, and you need to come see it. And in fact, you're a UT student, and we now have $15 tickets special for university students. So there is no excuse for you not to come. Go Vols. So we're also really proud, and really the cornerstone of our mission is being a conservation organization. It is the foundation of what we do, saving animals from extinction. So we are accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. That's an honor earned by less than 10% of animal exhibitors licensed in the country. We're internationally recognized conservation organization, and we work both locally and then globally to save endangered species. So we're internationally recognized. I mentioned red pandas. We participate in 79 species survival plans, our hallmark program being Himalayan red pandas, but also American red wolves, Malagasy tortoises, and East Tennessee bog turtles right in our own backyard, and also participate in the monarch butterfly SAFE program, which stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. We have a partnership with UT College of Veterinary Medicine, which is a program we're very proud of. We train a significant number of the nation's exotic animal vets around the country. And there's only 8 such programs in the country that have that kind of partnership between a zoo or an aquarium and a university vet program. We're an educational resource, of course, cutting edge and innovative STEM education programming. We're the largest education resource outside of schools in Knoxville. 49,000 kids last year participated in our education programs, delivered either at their school or on zoo grounds. This year with COVID, we're offering virtual learning pods for children who need to have a place to do their virtual learning, but their parents work at home, have to go to work. So we're doing that, and we are also expanding our distance learning opportunities. We're a community asset, so you can hit the next slide. A valued local source of community pride, obviously a cultural attraction, hopefully a place that you show your residents, your visitors from out of town, and a great place to play and learn. Next slide. Okay, so I guess I'm going to jump right into annual funding. For some reason, that one caught me off guard, but hopefully you can see the screen really well. From a business standpoint, this should get my number counters a little interested there. So in 2019, our total revenues that we brought in were $11.1 million in revenue, and the screen's a little small for me, but I can tell you that that big blue section that you see is our gate. That brought in about $3.2 million, 28% of our revenues. The next is the big green bar that you see. That is what people spend when they are inside the gate. So the things they eat and drink, the stuffed animals that they buy, those kind of things. By and large, 86% of our revenue is self-earned. So the small part, if you see the maroon bar that's across from the big blue piece of the pie, that's our appropriation with the city. So a lot of people don't realize that we're a private nonprofit, 501c3, but the city owns our property, and so we lease the property from the city under a management contract with them, and in exchange they give us an annual appropriation that accounts for about 14% of our overall revenue. So again, this is unique for a zoo. Most zoos average about 30% of their revenues come from their municipality. So we certainly would not turn down more, but we are proud of the amount of revenues that we bring in through our hard work here. Next slide. Expenses, I'd love to say that we have a higher margin there, but we do put most of our cash right back into the services that we provide. Our expenses last year were right at $10.8 million, net revenue of $325,000. Greg keeps my finger to his thumb on the gas there to be sure that we're running the zoo and being good stewards and holding our expenses as we can. I'm proud to say that in the 7 years that I have been director, we have been in the black all but the very first year, and I only had 6 months of that year to claim my own. So I'm gonna I guess call a mulligan there. And so when you look at those expenses, you'll see that the largest percentage of our expenses are orange, and that's personnel. About 51% of our expenses are in personnel. We are a service organization. We have high fixed costs there. And that number is trimmed down this year as a result of COVID, but it still is certainly our highest expense. One thing that's usually pretty surprising to people are the amount that we spend on animal care. So I'm trying to find it here. It is the purple bar that is right beside the orange personnel piece. And about $500,000 or 4.5% of our overall expenses are attributed to animal care. And that's because we are really part of a conservation movement, mission-based. We do not buy and sell animals. That is part of our association of zoos and aquariums making decisions for animals that's in the best interest of that species survival plans. And so that cost that you see is three things. It's veterinary care that we get through our partnership with the University of Tennessee. It's animal food, what it costs to feed them, and it is any animal shipments. So, to bring Upepo, our lion here, for instance, had a decent price tag, and so that would be coded into that area. So that is our expenses. The only other thing I'll say is our utilities, which is primarily our KUB bill. It's solely our KUB bill, runs about $660,000 a year. And believe it or not, when I got this job back in 2013, that was budgeted to be over $1 million. So we have really invested heavily in the infrastructure of this 75-year-old, 76-year-old park. And we have reduced our KUB bill by plugging water leaks, by building more efficient pools that circulate water, and by lots of green initiatives. So again, we have cut that in half, and I'm really, really proud of that. I think it leads to being a good steward. And that leads me then to the next slide about all of the ways that we try to be accessible to our community and to give back to the community. I won't read through all of those for you, but just, some things to know. Right now, all Knox County schools and required chaperones get in free on field trips. They're not doing many field trips this year, but last year that was over 30,000 kids. Active duty military, veterans, first responders, teachers, all these things, these people get in free to the zoo. Talked about our education impact, but we also give back with some things like Believers Fellowship, which is neighborhood at-risk youth, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Sertoma, Remote Area Medical, Kiwanis Fresh Air Camp, and we donate hundreds of tickets every year to local charities for their own fundraisers. So all that just to say that even though we are a nonprofit, we believe very much in being a community partner and helping give back and making the zoo accessible to everyone. Next slide. So the impact of COVID. So we talked about this some in our chats previously, but our current projections show Zoo Knoxville bearing about a $1.5 million deficit at year end. We were closed for 63 days. We closed on March 16th of this year. And that is when we were at our most cash vulnerable position. We're coming out of our winter season when we are burning up our reserves, and then typically reserves cash starts to come back in right in March with Knox County spring break. We closed on day one of Knox County spring break. And so again, at our most vulnerable cash position, and also at a time when, we really needed that cash to be coming in. So just a few facts about that. Animal care and personnel and their expenses total about $2.4 million annually, whether the zoo's open or closed. And so that, of course, isn't talking about all of the other support staff that are there when the zoo is open to the public. Knoxville Zoo, I mentioned, was closed. The average loss of our the revenues that we lost during closure was about $22,500 a day. And again, whether opened or closed, we were still really burning through cash. We reopened again on May 18th. Following careful planning to design and maximize safety for our guests, staff, and animals. And I'll have to say, when I'm watching Facebook and social media before I go to bed and everybody's talking about picking up quilting and scrapbooking and all this, I'm like, my God, I didn't have time to eat. I have never been so busy as I was those 63 days because, we first had to deal with closing down. Then we immediately had to go out for emergency relief to help keep us solvent and open. And no sooner did some of those things come back in than we had to pivot to open. And so it was a really busy, very stressful time. And I do give a huge shout out to Greg and my board and my financial finance committee who really worked very hard for us on that. Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading you, Holly. So excuse me I'm not very good technology multitasker. So some things that happened, and I'll go quickly through these. We opened the zoo during a different kind of phasing process. In order to open, we needed to prove to the city that we could be safe. We're blessed as part of that Association of Zoos and Aquariums that really ground zero was happening out in Portland and in Oregon, and they were telling us the things they were doing to open, and it was allowing us a little prep and time. So during phase 1, we opened the zoo in limited capacity, online ticket sales, timed entry, and we had one-way traffic through the zoo. We had a lot of no-touch situations. Next slide. Really as a passive use experience, very much as you would think of going to the park. So we have, as you can see there, we had social distancing markers throughout the zoo, one-way traffic, and that seemed to work well. I think people were just happy to be back. Next slide. And we've gradually, you're just seeing, again, some of the safety measures. So if you come to the zoo, we do require a mask, and not for when you're walking around outside, that's all fine. But we are the property of the city, and per the city's mandates, when you enter into any building, you have to be masked. So we require masks for entry in order to use our facilities and all of those things too. So you see here some of the things we tried to move people away from the glass, one-way trails, but we have gradually opened the zoo. It's not open for one-way traffic anymore. It's kind of free flow, and that is working out pretty well for us. We soon will be opening our playgrounds and things again because the city of Knoxville has opened theirs, and we've got really strict, stringent cleaning protocols. All of our staff are masked, and that is to protect them as much as it is to protect our guests. So, you know, we have paperless entry, and I feel like we've done a really exceptional job being safe and opening safely for our guests. So let's see, is the next slide, I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh, so yeah, Emergency Animal Relief Fund. So I did mention that when we closed, we were in a hard way. And so we immediately started working with several different entities to help us. And were it not for the ones I'll mention, Zoo Knoxville would not be open today. So we did receive the Paycheck Protection Program through the Federal CARES Act for $1.1 million. We were some of the first to receive that. Through the city of Knoxville, we received a $700,000 emergency grant, $500,000 from Knox County, which is a loan with no interest and an extended payback. What touched us, we also just last week received $178,000. I don't even think Greg knows this, $178,000 in a grant from the Tennessee CARES Act for COVID protection and to reimburse us for all the expenses that we incurred to open safely and stay open. But the one that probably touched us the most was the one you see on the slide, the Emergency Animal Relief Fund, closed but still caring. And we had a lot of heart-to-hearts internally about whether it was tasteful to do this with so many in our community out of work and hurting, but we felt like we were hearing so many who were concerned about us being closed and how are we caring for the animals that we decided to do it. And so we ran this closed but still caring campaign asking our community to consider contributing to the Emergency Animal Relief Fund. And they did big. And I'm talking about kids with their lemonade stands and nickels and pennies. And through all of them, we raised $250,000 in a little over a month's time from 1,882 donors. So that really meant a lot to us. Next slide. This is before she starts this, I'd like to say that when we reopened, we had these signs out all over the zoo from the animals and little puns and things, but saying that we missed everybody. And, you know, the zoo was closed those 63 days in March and April and part of May. It had to be, I don't know about you guys, but the prettiest April we have had in years. It was gorgeous at the zoo. It was really eerie to be closed and empty. And so when people came back, it was emotional for us and it was emotional for them. And this is a commercial that we ran that we asked our guests to contribute to. That still chokes me up a little if I think about it too much. But, you know, we literally had guests say that they teared up when they came back to the zoo, not necessarily because we're so special, although I think we are, but it was because it gave a sense of normalcy, some sense of normalcy to be back at the zoo and to see those welcoming signs. And I don't know about you guys, but my church just reconvened on Sunday in the lawn, and I had those same emotions when I saw everybody again and realized I hadn't seen them for so long. But we are back open. And the future is bright. We are really encouraged by how people are coming out and supporting the zoo. We have about between 70 and 80% of last year's attendance, and we feel really, really good about that. Next slide. So for animal updates, of course, you met our little red panda cub, Joe, and he's doing great. He'll be leaving us tomorrow, so I wanted to be sure that you had a peek and got to see him, and the 111th red panda cub born at the zoo. So we're always really proud. We try to never take them for granted. Next slide. We also, a few weeks ago, brought in Upepo the lion. So I don't know if you saw that on the news. Upepo means wind in Swahili, and he came to us from zoo in Oregon. He's 8 years old, and is to be a breeding male for us. He came to be paired with a female lion, Anne, who was by herself. And sadly, Anne passed away before he came. So he is on the prowl for a new female, and new female should be coming in 2021, if not the end of this year. So we are really excited about him. He made his debut with the Knoxville Opera Singers a few weeks ago. And as typical with a cowardly lion, all the spectacle scared him to death, and he never even popped his head outside. So hopefully some females will help him be a little braver. But he is out on habitat now. And that was a move that came to us through FedEx. We brought him here through a FedEx airplane. Jumbo chimpanzee is one of our, well, she's been here a few years now, but she is pregnant. And so at the end of the year, December, early January, we are expecting a new baby chimpanzee. So we're excited to talk about that. Jumbo comes from a really strong family at the Baltimore Zoo in Maryland and came here specifically to breed. We don't know who she bred with. Chimps are quite promiscuous. And so we'll do a DNA test to find that out. And you see her down in that bottom slide in ultrasound training. So we do training with her to present her belly to the cage front, and we've been able to track the baby and know that it's safe. We also do maternal rearing training with her. So in the event that she, for whatever reason, isn't producing milk, or we had to take the baby to hand raise, it's really important for those babies to get back within the first 4 months of life with their mother, obviously, or a surrogate. Obviously, they'd still be nursing. So we train the chimps to bring a chimp baby doll up to the cage front, allow it to have a bottle, and that has been done very successfully at zoos across the country. And that way you can allow the apes to be raised in their own with their own species, and they're much more behaviorally well-rounded that way. Next slide. Before we hit this, I'll just say I think we've also mentioned in the press that we have a pregnant giraffe. So we are expecting another giraffe baby toward the end of the year. So lots of animal things happening at the zoo. And that always is really what people come for. For events, I'll just say, you know, we had to cancel a lot of events this year, which hurt us financially. We had to cancel our Wild Vine event in April. We had to cancel Feast with the Beast in August, and our craft brew event that we have. But we have tried to make lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. We've added an event called Craft Bears. And prior this summer, we had summer nights. So we have extended our hours on Thursdays. We're open till 8 p.m. And the Craft Bears event is running every Thursday through September. And every week we feature a craft brewery and food trucks. That ran the first time last Thursday night and was really successful. Not a lot of people, but they really came to eat and drink. So that might be a good one for you, Gabe. Come see the zoo and sample a craft beer and walk around and hit the food trucks too, all for $15. You can't beat that. And then the other big, we will run Boo at the Zoo. We're getting a lot of questions about that. It will be more of a sensory passive experience this year. We will have trick-or-treating, the treat stations done very safely, but not a lot of the touch and hug and photos with the characters that we've done before. But we do expect it to be big because trick-or-treating itself may not be recommended. And then finally, our big event, I don't have a slide for it, but all through December, we're going to be hosting Zoo Lights. And Zoo Lights will feature what we do best: zoo animals, giant silk animals of exotic animals. It's a Chinese lantern company that does it. And we anticipate that being hugely successful for us. So I hope you will come out for those events. And then in terms of what's happening going on in the future, this is the slide that you see here is the First Bank Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Center. This was well underway when before the pandemic hit. It's a $18 million facility coming on the heels of Boyd Family Asian Trek. And so, you know, I went over my operating dollars for you, but the zoo has two buckets of money. They have a bucket of money for operating and then a separate restricted bucket of money for capital improvements and enhancements. So when the Clayton Family Art Campus and First Bank Art Center opens, the zoo will have completed close to $40 million in new capital investments and enhancements. And so when I say that it's not your mama's zoo, it really isn't. So this is an animated fly-through architectural rendering of what the Clayton Family Art Campus will be.
I'm WBIR's John Becker. Join me as we take a closer in April.
So that is the Clayton Family Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Center and campus. And so what you see now on the screen are some images of it as it's come out of the ground. It is a striking, beautiful place. It is. It's really going to be transformational for our zoo because it sits on right at the center campus. When you come in the front gate, you won't be able to miss it. It has significant education components. We received a $500,000 grant and a $1 million grant just for education and technology, has indoor and outdoor classrooms. And currently our reptile facility is the most dated in the zoo and receives the worst ratings of any of our habitats. And this houses arguably the most important collection in the zoo for us, both in terms of conservation impact as well as education potential. So it has been 30 years in the coming. We are so happy to see it happen. Sadly, you can hit the next slide. This is one of the outdoor components that's complete and being planted now as we speak. So we again are just really excited about it. Sadly, the otter exhibit, we still had money to raise with it right when COVID hit. The board thought it prudent to be good stewards to pause that campaign. So we still have some money to raise to finish that. We're looking at it every month, and I'm hopeful that that otter component will come back on very, very quickly. But all in all, that's what's going on at the zoo. If you go to buildtheark.com on our website, you can see how you can be part of that legacy and see everything that is coming, in our public donation wall, where you can buy one of the animals that'll be featured on this beautiful donors wall as you exit the building. So again, really excited about that. So I do see some questions, but before that, I do have one other little surprise for you. And this is a video from our world famous parrot Einstein and his trainer Adam. So I'm going to let Holly pull that up, and I'll join you in a minute. Always got to finish with Einstein. So anyway, I thought that was cute. I hope you do too. That's my presentation. I've taken up almost all your time, but I do see a few questions. And I see the first one, or maybe the one that has the most votes, or what is or was prior to COVID the biggest opportunity for growth over the next 3 to 5 years. And, you know, with the opening of Boyd Family Asian Trek and the Clayton Family Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Center, the zoo would have completed about a little over a third of its master plan implementation. Our hope was to finish this capital campaign and take a rest, and then launch the expansion of the west half of the zoo, or the grasslands exhibit, particularly where the elephants live. That offered a huge opportunity to growth, because we mentioned the trajectory the zoo's been on with attendance. And the plan is very deliberate, which is a slow and steady growth in attendance, ultimately to the completion of Africa, which originally was scheduled to happen about 2026, 2027, at which point our attendance would be doubled, near 800,000 people. So now we are reassessing that, and I think most people, most zoos and aquariums across the country are doing the same thing. We are deciding what has to be done and what must be done. And we are looking at these new opportunities to utilize our campus. So in fact, our board has our planning retreat for the next 18 to 24 months, so that we can set our priorities. But, you know, we like to say that with our closure, we can't add days to the calendar, but we can add hours to the day. And so that has been a big focus for us, are bringing in events like Zoo Lights, craft bears, things like that, where they don't have a lot of high fixed costs. They don't add to our fixed cost, but they allow us to utilize the campus. So you will probably see a lot more of those kind of opportunities in the short term. Another question I see is how much is left to raise for the otter exhibit. We are working that out right now, but it is somewhere around $650,000. So it is not a lot of money. And that leads me to Jill's question about how can you best support the zoo as a community? And, you know, I showed you that buildtheark.com. Well, that's part of the public launch of our capital campaign, which we had just launched when COVID hit. And, you know, you can buy one of the animals from $100 all the way up to $7,500 and have your name commemorated on that wall. That helps us build otters. from a broader perspective, how can you help support the zoo? The number one way you can support the zoo is to come and to talk about us to your friends, to come to some of these events, to buy an annual pass or the Circle of Friends membership, to have your FEI annual fiesta here. We have safe zoo buyout opportunities for your companies. We can't quite have company picnics like we used to and feel safe. And I believe it was Alan or someone was talking about their banquet hall sitting empty. Our corporate events have taken a big hit too, but the difference here at the zoo is that we can provide you a boxed lunch. You can eat throughout the zoo. You can still bring your company here. We're going to run that corporate buyout plan through Zoo Lights as well. But that is the biggest way that you can help, is just to talk about us and buy membership and come. That's the biggest way. So I think I've answered most of the questions, unless there's any more. I really appreciate being able to talk to all of you and talk at you. And here comes my gracious host on the stage. So I appreciate having you. Next time I'd like to see you in person.
Hey, Lisa, I know you did the Q&A. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the group? Because I can assure you, you're going to have some nice attendance from this meeting. The feedback's been pretty positive on what all you guys have going on. So
Great.
Any lasting thoughts with the group other than what you've said already?
No, I said quite a mouthful, I think. So I would just say that, there is a lot going on at the zoo, a lot going on, reasons to come this year and this fall. But certainly the ARC's opening in April. Not a lot of organizations coming out of COVID have $18 million new facility to debut next spring. So the future is really bright, and it has been really touching to us to know how much we mean to the community. And I will say that nationwide, what I have heard from zoos and aquariums are, the federal government may or may not help. Your city may or may not help your state, but what we have all learned through this, my colleagues and I, are that we are beloved institutions in our communities, and it's our communities that make us strong. So I guess I'll end on that. Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you. You've got a lot going on. We appreciate you sharing the sound bites and your time. Very informative. You all are sitting on what I view as kind of a hidden asset of Knoxville. So hopefully more and more people can go out and experience with their family. Everybody that was on the Q&A in the chat room, I know will do so. Special thanks to board partners and members that were able to attend tonight, both existing and new partners, as well as our 5 interns, 3 of which are new. And first and lastly, but maybe more importantly, Holly and her team, who executed a pretty flawless meeting with a lot of AV ins and outs. So thank you, Holly. To the extent we go virtual again, we will have you on speed dial. And to the extent any of you other folks want to have meetings virtually with a platform like this, we can put you in touch with Holly. So that is all I have. Be safe, and we hope to see you all in person at our October meeting. Have a great rest of the week.